the Dunlop Endurance Championship, and we've come to the UK's fastest race circuit, Thruxton. With some of the quickest corners in motorsport, Thruxton is a mecca for speed demons and universally loved by racing drivers. But this is a circuit that demands respect. Get it wrong here and you're in big trouble. Not to mention the fact that this circuit places unique demands on the cars and tyres. So make no mistake, you're in for a wild ride.
Very fast, very sweeping, lots of undulation and bumps. It's tough, and we haven't got power steering, so it's a good test on the driver.
It's all fast corners, and the car is just floating. So it just, you're round the back. It's 170 miles an hour through kind of Goodwood and Church. You're kind of not braking very much, and you just hang on and enjoy the ride, really.
It is a different challenge, the other circuit. It's very fast, which is always it's good fun. Gets your heart going a bit, but no, I definitely enjoy it. Faster the better.
Tyres are the biggest issue. You have to look after them. We've set the car up, obviously try and look after the tyre, but then from my side I have to then step back a little bit in the race. But in qualifying, I'm sure everyone's going to be flat chat and see what we can do, but come the race, we'll probably step it back 10% and look after her and bring her home.
Challenging, yes. Frightening, very much, yes. I came and did a track day last week in an old BMW to learn the track. We did the production race yesterday, and it is frightening. It's the fastest I've ever driven around a circuit, and it scares me to death. I don't mind admitting it.
I think it's very easy to get desensitised to the speed that you're doing, so when you're coming up to the chicane at the end, it's very easy to get it wrong, really, because you're going so fast and you think you slow down a lot, and actually you're still doing sort of 30-40 miles an hour quicker than you thought you were.
This track makes me nervous, but in a good way. But I guess that's what racetracks should be like. They should spring up the entertainment right until the finish line, and it's definitely what it's going to do this afternoon.
This year, the championship is being revitalised under the guidance of new Britcar directors Claire and Rob Headley. Changes to both format and approach welcomed by many.
So Claire, we're already round 4. It seems to be flying by. How are you finding it all so far?
Oh, absolutely amazing, absolutely loving being part of this, very passionate about it from the word go, and we just knew it'd be popular. The feedback from all the competitors, teams, sponsors has just been, you and Rob are just doing an amazing job, and we're going to just continue that way, hopefully, so really, really pleased.
And everyone as well talks about the family atmosphere here, how for all the new faces we've seen, how they feel that they've been really accepted by kind of some more of the older faces. Do you find that as well?
Oh, definitely. I wanted the Britcar back to where it was, friendly pit lane, everyone's helping each other, any issues with cars, they always seem to be able to talk to each other, and we wanted to make sure management was important so that they could address any issues and we'd be able to help them where we can.
And at the start of the season, you wanted to add more, say, with the hospitality side of things. And are you happy with how that's been received? Because everyone here seems to be enjoying it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a new thing for Britcar to have full VIP hospitality. All teams get it included in their entry fee. And as you can see behind, it just, everyone's loving the experience and bringing guests along, sponsors. So it's very important to have that within the package.
Looking at the races ahead, the rounds we've got coming up, what's your favourite? What one are you looking forward to the most?
Oh, Alton Park. Alton Park, as a competitor myself, Alton Park and Brands Hatch Grand Prix are my favourite. And obviously, also, I forget the night race at Brands, end of the season, I think will be a great, phenomenal, great sight for spectators. So do, encourage as many people to come along as possible.
One of the teams that's been attracted to the new package is Whitebridge Motorsport, with their former quad bike racing champion, Chris Murphy.
I've done off-road motorbike, quad bike racing for 20 years. Got too old and too many injuries, so we need to sit inside a car that's a bit safer. But I have to say that it's harder than I thought it would be to race around the track. You've got to be far more precise than the off-road stuff. But it's great learning and I'm really enjoying it. Britcar in itself is a great atmosphere, the camaraderie with all the other guys. I've got to know this year it is great. There's no aggravation. We're all out to do this, have some good fun and enjoy it, and it's probably the best place to start racing. If anybody else wants to start doing endurance racing, then this is the place to come, without a doubt. Good fun.
Nick Randall and Fabio Randaccio bring plenty of experience to the grid, though Nick hasn't raced here for 18 years.
The circuit hasn't changed. I've changed, but the circuit hasn't. Lovely circuit, but I'm struggling with it, is the truth.
Yeah, what are you struggling with the most?
Well, just learning it. It's a very quick circuit and you don't want to go out there quickly and do something stupid. So I'm pretty slow at the moment, but I hope that improves.
It's a father-son team. What's it like racing together?
Oh, it's great. You know, he got me into racing when I was young. We've done it together over the years. You know, it's a lovely experience to be able to do. How many people can do that? It's nice.
There was a time when I used to teach him, and now there's a time when he teaches me. The biggest problem with sharing a car is you can't blame the car. So if I'm not going very quickly, you know, if I was on my own or with somebody else, I could blame the car. But when he gets in it and goes a lot quicker than me, I've only got one person to blame. That's reality and that's me. So truth is, I'm struggling to get up to his pace. We used to always be a few seconds apart. I'm now a lot slower. I haven't done much racing. I haven't done much modern car racing. So this is the first time I'm back in an endurance car. I'm quite a lot older than lots of the guys, not Mike Wiles, because he's in a car a lot, but my trouble is I'm not in the car very much, so these are all the excuses I've got. But no, it's a great bonding experience, we really enjoy it, we've done a lot of it, and it's really good, yeah, nice series.
Following a practice session this morning, the teams had their first taste of competitive action with 30 minutes of qualifying just before lunch. Here's Chris Hartley with a summary of the action.
With 2 class wins out of 3, the Century Motorsport pairing of Jacob Mathiasson and Steve Fressel arrive here at Thruxton with a 1-point lead in the standings. 2-time winners Phil Hansen and Nigel Moore are their nearest rivals in the Tockwith Motorsports Audi. It was all guns blazing in qualifying as the Wessex Vehicles Lamborghini Hurricane, on its first outing of the season, set the early pace, with Craig Dolby behind the wheel. But on his final flying lap before handing over to teammate David Mason, Callum Lockie took the FF Course Ferrari onto provisional pole, 3/10 quicker than the Lamborghini. Following outright wins at Silverstone and Donington, the Tockwith Motorsports Audi R8 struggled to match the Italian supercars in qualifying. Phil Hansen's best lap 2 seconds away from pole, but still enough for third on the grid. Topping the times in Class 2, the FF Course Ferrari of Mike and Anthony Wilds, the winners of the second round of the championship at Snetterton, setting the 4th fastest time overall, albeit just 1/10 of a second quicker than the Mac G Racing Tyrannus of Johnny McGregor. In turn, Johnny was just 22 thousandths of a second quicker than Jacob Mathiasson in the Century Motorsport Ginetta G55. The championship leaders head in Class 3, but with the Whitebridge Motorsport Aston of Johnny Cocker and Chris Murphy only 2/10 slower. The rules state that whichever of a team's drivers sets the quickest time in qualifying has to start the race, but there were tactics in play at Neil Garner Motorsport as number 1 driver Javier Morfeo held back. Meanwhile, holding back was not a phrase you could level at Craig Dolby. Back out for a second stint, he snatched pole position from the Ferrari in the closing minutes.
It's time for us to take a short break now, but when we come back, it's time to go racing at Thruxton. Join us in a few minutes' time. Welcome back to Thruxton, where, with qualifying complete, it's time to go racing. Here's Chris Hartley to talk you through round 4 of the Dunlop Endurance Championship.
The cars make their way up into the club chicane, ready for the rolling start. There you can see the grid on screen, and it's Craig Dolby that will start the Wessex Vehicles Lamborghini Hurricane from pole position. Multiple champion Callum Lockie alongside in the Ferrari 458 run by FF Course, and Phil Hansen starts the Audi R8 for Tockwith Motorsports. He's taken 2 wins alongside Nigel Moore so far this season. So the safety vehicle peels its way into the pit lane. The lights go out and we go racing here as they thunder across the start-finish line at Thruxton. And we go on board with Phil Hansen, who loses a place. That's Mike Wiles going around the outside of him in the Class 2 number 9 Ferrari. So the double race winners losing 1 place, but there's a mighty long way to go in this 2-hour race. Into the complex for the first time, then through Campbell into the left-hander at Cobb. Craig Dolby in the Lamborghini, just ahead of this man, Callum Lockie in the FF Course Ferrari 458. They accelerate now out of Seagrave and in towards the super quick second half of the lap here at Thruxton, through the left-hand kink at Noble and down towards the right-hander at Goodwood. There they are, the top 3 together. A Lamborghini chased by 2 Ferraris. Italian cars are 1, 2, 3, and then it's the Audi. And then look at that number 43 car of Jacob Mathiasson, the Danish driver, just about staying ahead of Johnny Cocker in the Whitebridge Motorsport Aston Martin. Those 2 battling for Class 3 honours as we go on board with the Lotus of Fabio Randaccio. He overtakes Lee Atkins here to slot down the inside of the number 38 Snows Run BMW and gain a place. Up then towards the club chicane for the first time in anger is our race leader Craig Dolby. Callum Lockie hanging on to his coattails in the Ferrari at the end of this, the opening lap of the race. We go on board now with Manuel Centrano, the Spanish driver, aboard the Mosler, and he's onto the tail of Johnny Cocker in that Whitebridge Aston Martin. Now, the driver that sets the fastest time in qualifying has to start the race. It is normally his teammate, Javier Morcillo, the pro driver, that starts the race, that sets the quickest time in qualifying. But Javier's tactic was to go not flat out in qualifying, to allow his teammate his first start of the season, and the game plan for that team will be for the quicker driver then to try and chase down the pack in the second half of the race. So we have the prospect of some real fireworks coming up in the second half of the race. We go back on board now, though, with our fourth place driver, Phil Hansen, in the Audi R8, trying to keep up with Mike Wild in the Class 2 Ferrari. There's Johnny McGregor in the Tyrannus running in 5th place, and running in 6th place it's Jacob Mathiasen, the Class 3 leader in the Century Motorsport Run Ginetta. Out through the super quick section at the back of the circuit, then through Village, through the mighty Church Corner, then they climb up through Woodham Hill and hit the brakes into the right, left, right chicane, the club chicane at the end of the lap. You're on board with the race leader. There he is, making his way through, and very much hanging on to him on this lap is Callum Lockie. The gap between the two of them has remained at around about half a second. They thunder across the start-finish line, go now into the right-hand kink at Allard, and that will set them up for the first real braking zone of the lap, into Campbell, the right-hander, straight into the left at Cobb, and then the circuit and the apex widening up as they accelerate out through Seagrave. So they're then the top two, both of them running in Class 1. The gap from 3rd to 4th, look, has started to come down as we go back on board with the Tockwith Motorsport Audi R8. Mike Wild's just ahead of him, somebody who's been racing since 1965 in Formula Ford, European Formula 3. He raced Formula 5000s, the mighty F5000 cars, and he also did some races in Formula 1 and also made a name for himself in World Sports Cars, did Mike Wild. Still very much active in racing, a double Britcar champion in the production category with his son Anthony Wilds, and race winners at Snetterton, but coming under attack here from the Audi, who picks up a toe, dives down the inside. They're absolutely will to will here, and Phil Hansen guns down the inside and snatches 3rd place back. So that's back to where he started now. The problem for Phil now is that he's already lost nearly 11 seconds to the race leader. There are the FF course crew, and there is Anthony Wild, son of Mike, who has just lost that position to the Audi driver. He won't be too concerned, though, because there still are class leaders in Class 2. Here's the battle for 5th and 6th position. Johnny McGregor in the Tyrannus, he's driving solo for this one, and Jacob Mathiasen, the Danish driver, who's going to hand over to Steve Fressel later on. On board with the Lotus Europa, making its way through the club chicane, Fabio Randaccio, whose dad Chris Randall is going to take over, and there's Lee Atkins keeping up with him, having lost a position to the Lotus 1 lap ago. So some tight little duels going on here. There's the number 3 Neil Garner Motorsport Run Mosler MT900, glorious car with a glorious history and much success in Britcar over the years. I'm going to get a replay now of the start from Manuel Centrano in that car. So the rolling start, the Whitebridge Motorsport Aston Martin was alongside him, the number 54 car, driven by the very experienced GT racer Johnny Cocker, who slotted one down the inside, and Johnny got past the Mosler, so that was how he got embroiled in that battle with the Ginetta for 5th place. So the Mosler's still going, but the job for Manuel Centrano will be to just try and hang on, if he can, to the lead lap, but certainly to not fall too far behind the race leaders, to give his very quick teammate the chance to catch them up in the second half of the race. You've got Nigel Moore to come into that Audi, taking over from Phil Hansen a bit later in the race. Craig Dolby then leading the way. He is expected to be the quicker of the two drivers in the Hurricane. It's run by Wessex Vehicles, and Nigel Mustel runs the car, and he's the second driver, a long-term supporter of Britcar, and no mean driver himself. So it's a good partnership, but they can't shake off Callum Lockie. What they will be encouraged by, though, is the fact that Nigel Mustel would expect himself to be perhaps a little quicker than David Mason, who's going to take over the Ferrari from Callum Lockie. So even if Callum is able to hang on to Craig Dolby, then Dolby and Mustel should be in a good position come the second half of the race. Do not rule out the Audi, that's still going well in 3rd place. Mike Wild's hanging on to young Phil Hansen, a gulf of experience between them, but they're very evenly matched here. Synchro Motorsports are looking for another class win with that fantastic Honda Civic driven by Alan James. Great shot of it running through the club chicane there. There is the 7th place Whitebridge Motorsport Aston Martin, Johnny Cocker driving the car this weekend. He won the British GT Championship, aged just 18, youngest ever driver to win that title back in 2004. And here we can see in 8th place is Manuel Cintrano, working his way through Goodwood Corner, looking after the car, ready to hand that over to his teammate mid-race. So Fabio Randaccio in the Lotus Europa coming through into Goodwood Corner and pressing buttons and looking not quite as rapid as he maybe should. And yes, indeed, the Lotus Europa very early on in the race is slowing. So Lee Atkins is going to come storming back past in the BMW, and this does not look healthy, I'm afraid, for the Hoffmans of Henley Lotus Europa. Meanwhile, look at this. The gap from first to second has come down considerably. You're on board with Callum Lockie as he chases down Craig Dolby. He's been quicker for the last couple of laps, and the gap between the two of them is less than a second now. So Craig Dolby, twice a runner-up in the Super League formula, if you remember that, where single-seater race cars, very quick race cars, 750 brake horsepower machines, were teamed up with football clubs. It was a concept which ran for a few years, and Craig was a front runner in that championship. But here, sad news, I'm afraid, for Fabio Randaccio. The car is pulled off the circuit, and he's not even going to make it back to the pits under his own steam. There's plenty to talk about for the crowd so far. Lee Atkins then is gaining a place. That puts him back up into 8th position now, and he looking for a class victory in that car. Here, the much quicker Lamborghini Huracan, though, making its way through the club chicane, and coming up to lap the Synchro Motorsports Alan James driven Honda. So Craig Dolby coming through. He's racing these days, concentrating his career in endurance racing. He's raced in Blancpain in the Sprint Series. He's done some FIA GT racing as well, and racing last year in a Nissan GT3 Nismo in the Blancpain Sprint Series. Good to see Craig back with Britcar, though. He has raced with the championship a number of times. So the gap from second to third is growing. The Audi at the moment of Phil Hansen just dropping back a little bit from that fight between the Lamborghini and the Ferrari, but he's pulling away in turn from Mike Wilds there in the number 9 FF Course Ferrari, which still continues to lead Class 2. Being towed back to the pits now. This is the onboard view with Fabio Randaccio in the Hoffmans of Henley Lotus Europa. Hopefully they'll be able to get the car sorted and back out. They're going to lose an awful lot of time. Race leader marches on, no problems, but Craig Dolby having perhaps to push harder than he would like here to keep the FF Course Ferrari of Callum Lockie behind him. Callum Lockie, the most experienced driver in Britcar, currently racing in the field, 5 times a champion, and he and David Mason with the FF Course Ferrari team winning both of the last 2 championship titles, but not off to a good start this year as they continue to consolidate second place from this man, Phil Hansen, in the Tockwith Motorsport Audi. They're the team on the pit wall, in communication all the time with the drivers. There to the left of the picture is Nigel Moore, who also has a hand in running this family-run team, as well as being a mighty quick driver himself. Here's Mike Wilds then, kind of on his own now, having a lonely but still, I'm sure, very enjoyable race in 4th place. He's having to work hard because Johnny McGregor is on the pace in the Tyrannus, and he now has broken away from the Ginetta and the Mosler and the Aston Martin to get himself in a clear 5th place. On board with Manuel Cintrano in the Mosler. He's a lap down on the race leaders now, but putting in some very consistent lap times. He really has improved as a driver over the last couple of years under the guidance of his teammate Javier Morcillo. The Ginetta behind him trying to lap him, that was Jacob Mathiasen, as the Lotus makes its way back into the garage to be checked out and see whether they can get the car back into the race. So Jacob Mathiasen, the Danish driver, his first ever visit to the Thruxton circuit, his first year of racing in the UK, tries to go down the inside of the Mosler. The gap opened up, but he couldn't find a way through at the left-hander at Cobb. Mathiasen then will try the outside into Seagrave, but looking at the onboard, I reckon Cintrano has kept him at bay for now. Javier Morcillo, his teammate, will get into the car as early as possible. There is a limit in terms of maximum amount of time in a car any one driver can do, but I expect Javier to get in fairly shortly. For now, though, his teammate is making sure he doesn't get lapped by the Century Motorsport Ginetta. The Lotus is being looked at in the garage, and Rachel Downey is on the scene.
Just ask, what happened out there?
I don't know, the engine's cut out, so we're just trying to diagnose it now. We're not entirely sure why. So,
was there any problems beforehand?
No, it was running fine. It was running fine. So yeah, so we're hopefully we can fix it, but we don't know what's wrong yet.
So at times like this, it's literally breaking it down and starting from scratch with the engine and having a look?
Well, we've got quite a lot of diagnostics on the car.
Yeah.
So we're just, systematically going through bit by bit and seeing where we get to.
Real shame that for the Hoffmans team, as we see Johnny McGregor arriving in 4th place. Now, he was in 5th position behind the Ferrari of Mike Wilds, and something's changed. That's what's happened. The Ferrari's got a puncture up. The left rear is completely deflated, and Mike is limping back to the pits. So a puncture brings him in early. Into the pits he will come. Look, the tyre has completely shredded, and he's done well to limp that back. I imagine it would have gone around the faster sections of the circuit. There's so much load, so much pressure on the tyres around corners like Village and Church, where you're doing 150 miles an hour plus. So we've still got this duel going on between the Mosler and the Ginetta, and finally Jakob Mathiasen is able to put a lap onto the Mosler going into Goodwood Corner. So a nice little duel that. Back in the pits, FF Course are doing their best to change the strategy. So the tyre has been replaced. Mike Wilds has got to get back in. Anthony Wilds, there you can see in the foreground, was ready to take over, but they're a few minutes too early in terms of maximum driver time. So if Anthony was to get into the car now, he would have to come out of the car later and they'd have to do another pit stop because he would be in too long. So tyres being changed. Also saw the team refueling the car, so they're going to now change their strategy. And rather than just changing the one tyre, they're changing all 4 Dunlop slick tyres to get this car back out there. So that will knock them down the order somewhat. They'll lose a fair bit of time. However, with 4 brand new Dunlop slick tyres on, that Ferrari should now fly at this stage of the race.
Yeah. Save it for another half hour.
Anthony Wilds confirming that it was just a bit too early to make their driver change. So up to 4th place now in the Mac G Taranis goes Johnny McGregor.
It's time for us to take a very short break now, but we'll be back with more endurance racing from Thruxton in just a few minutes' time. Welcome back to Thruxton as we continue our coverage of round 4 of the Dunlop Endurance Championship. Now back to your commentator, Chris Harley.
Well, we're 45 minutes or so into this 2-hour race here at Thruxton, and there, the number 3 Neil Garner Motorsport Mosler is in. That's Javier Morcillo, who's going to take over from Manuel Centrano. The maximum amount of time one driver can spend in a car is at 1 hour and 12 minutes in this race. So that's just about going to be on the limits for Javier Morcillo as he gets into the car now, and a brand new set of Dunlop slick tyres are put onto the car, which was running outside of the top 6, and is several laps down on the race leaders, but with a very quick driver to get in, could now start to play catch up. There is the Ginetta, Century Motorsport Ginetta, which leads Class 3. Jakob Mathiasen is about to be lapped down the inside, just about squeezing through there was Phil Hansen in the number 19 Topwith Motorsports run Audi. It's Craig Dolby leaving in the Wessex Vehicles Lamborghini Huracan. He's 13 seconds clear of Callum Lockie in the number 1 FF Course Ferrari. And the Audi you've just seen is still on the lead lap in 3rd place and around about 2 or 3 seconds a lap on average slower than the race leaders. So new tyres put on to Javier Morcillo's Mosler by the Neil Garner Motorsport team. And you're on board with the race leader as he comes up to lap Johnny Cocker in the much less powerful Aston Martin run by Whitebridge Motorsport. But Johnny doing a good job, running 2nd in class and his first ever run in that car in this championship. Johnny also running in an impressive 6th place overall as out goes Javier Morcillo. The Mosler released back onto the circuit here at Thruxton. Callum Lockie absolutely pushing to the limits in that Ferrari to try and keep up with the Lamborghini Huracan of Craig Dolby. For much of this first session, he's been within a couple of seconds of the race leader, but just starting to slip back now, and the gap growing over the last 10 minutes or so to, as I say, around about 13 seconds, but still running in a comfortable 2nd place, well clear of the Audi. If they can stay here with the best result of the season so far for the defending champions. There is Alan James in the Synchro Motorsport Honda, and he is continuing to run smoothly, consistently. It's pretty hot out there, and Alan is one of the drivers going solo this weekend. So a long race ahead for him. As into the pits comes Johnny Cocker. Chris Murphy all set to take over, and there is the Class 4 leading BMW of Atkins Motorsport with Snow's BMW. Lee Atkins and Sam Allpass are the 2 drivers sharing the car, and there in the distance, that coming out of Allard, looks like Johnny McGregor getting out of the Taranis, which was running in 4th place, so that stopped out on circuit.
We're going to size them.
so it'll be okay. Yeah, it does feel quite warm. Yeah, so I was just being very, very gentle.
So that's Johnny Cocker passing on vital information about the state of the car and the state of the tyres to his teammate Chris Murphy, who's about to get into that Aston Martin. So hard on tyres around here, particularly in the heat that we've got. So that's the Audi just flashing through, shot into Goodwood, which is coming up to be lapped by this man, Craig Dolby. The overall race leader then has lapped everybody up to third place now, and he's soon to be lapping that Audi, because look how much more grunt the Lamborghini Huracan has got. Sparks fly at the bottom of the Audi as it makes its way through the mega right-hander at Church Corner, keeping his foot buried, though Craig Dolby comes through and puts a lap onto the Audi. So everybody but Callum Lockie now lapped by the leader. Back in the pits, Chris Murphy is now safely installed into the Aston Martin. That team going really well so far this season in Britcar, and right up there in the overall championship by dint of some consistent results. Right, Javier Morcillo already on a charge in the Mosler. That is him overtaking Mike Wiles in the FF Course Ferrari, but it's not for position. That is simply to get one lap back. He's a couple of laps down on that Ferrari. He's 5 laps down on the overall leader, which now comes into the pits. So Craig Dolby about to make his first stop in that car, and the Lamborghini Huracan, after an excellent stint by Craig Dolby, around about 15 seconds clear of Callum Lockie as they come into the pits to make their mandatory 90-second stop. Everybody has to make one mandatory 90-second stop, and the Audi is in as well. So Phil Hansen gets out. Nigel Moore with the black helmets on there to the left gives a fist pump to his teammate after a very good job, and he's going to get into the car once all the refuelling is complete. So Callum Lockie in the red FF Course Ferrari will now inherit the lead of the race, but look at the Mosler charging behind him. Javier Morcillo wants to get some laps back here on the race leaders to get himself back into contention, and the Mosler comes charging through. And you won't be too surprised to learn that Javier Morcillo in that Mosler is the fastest man on the circuit at the moment, much quicker even than the race leaders. He was more than 2.5 seconds quicker than Callum Lockie last time around. Of course, he's got the advantage of new Dunlop rubber, whereas Callum, who pushed that car hard in the first stint, looks to be losing a little bit of pace at the moment, but trying to make his stint last as long as possible. He'll go to the maximum driver stint time as the quicker of the two Ferrari drivers. Now that's Craig Dolby getting back into the Lamborghini, so they obviously are going to have to stop again. So new tyres going on, some fuel going in, but it comes out behind the Audi. Now the Audi is still in third place once all this settles down, but it's got its lap back. So Nigel Moore, crucially there, and the team at Tockwith Motorsports managing to unlap themselves in the pit lane as you go past the stricken Tyrannus of Johnny McGregor, parked up against the barriers there and going no further in the race. You get a 90 seconds pit stop minimum, but you can get time added on or taken away depending where you finished on the previous race. So Tockwith Motorsports, for example, won last time out at Donington Park, so they get another 15 seconds added on to that minimum pit stop time. If you finish second in class, you get 10 seconds added on. If you finish third in class, another 5 seconds added on, and it's all cumulative. So if you win 2 races on the bench, you could get another 30 seconds added on to your time, which makes a big difference, but levels things out and gives us different results. You've seen the Ginetta and the BMW coming in for their pit stops. So Jacob Mathiasen is going to hand over the Century Motorsport Ginetta to Steve Fressel. They are currently leading Class 3, and Lee Atkins is going to hand over the BMW to Sam Allpass. Going no further in this race, though, I'm afraid, is Johnny McGregor.
What happened?
So we broke a drive shaft coming out of the last corner. I think going around the back section we're bouncing around a lot and putting a lot of stress through the drivetrain, so I think clipping the curb on the way out and accelerating hard at the same time probably just a bit too much for it. You can see the revs peaking as the wheels are spinning at 150 odd out the back. You can imagine the force through everything's extremely high, so it's to be expected, I guess.
On board with the race leader then for FF Course in the Ferrari, it's Callum Lockie trying to build up as much gap as he can before the end of his stint. Oh, the car just gets away from him there. He wrestles with the steering wheel and gets well out of shape, and he's still fighting the wheel. He's lost a load of pace, and to me that looks like a tyre problem. He may have a puncture here, and he's halfway around the lap. He's got to limp it back to the pits here. That's going to really ruin their chances of winning this race. Meanwhile, no such problems for Javier Morcillo, who comes charging through. The Spaniard getting quicker and quicker with each and every lap that he's in the car. Now the Audi, the Talk With Motorsport Audi of Nigel Moore, he's able now to unlap itself from the Ferrari, which has still got to make its mandatory pit stop and is now coming in with this tyre problem. So Callum brings the car in, FF Course are ready, the fuel rigs are ready, and Callum will hop out of the car now. And will they get David Mason in now, or will Callum want to go on a bit further? Look at the tyre there. It's again the rear tyre, which has completely and suddenly deflated. So having both made a pit stop, you've got the Audi with a good chance of moving up to second place now. It is on the lead lap, but not for long, because Craig Dolby comes streaming past in the Lamborghini Huracan, and that is him moving ahead of Nigel Moore to put a lap on the Audi. But the Audi could well, as I say, move into second place with this tyre problem that the FF Course Ferrari has suffered. Flashing through shot, the Ginetta driven now by Steve Fressel. The Century Motorsport team still leading their class, but they're having to push hard because they had a longer pit stop than Whitebridge Motorsports with their Aston Martin, and that's thanks to all of the class wins that Steve Fressel and Jacob Mathiasen has been picking up so far this year. So there's the answer to the question for FF Course. David Mason did get in. He has taken over from Callum Lockie. Callum drove for just under 1 hour, so he could have done another 10 minutes or so up to his maximum driver stint. Ideally, Callum would have liked to have done another 7 or 8 laps, but the puncture put pay to that. So our top two make their way over the start-finish straight. They're from 4th place now, having got back up to 4th thanks to the retirement of Johnny McGregor, is the Mike Wilds, Anthony Wilds Ferrari, also run by FF Course, the team that run Callum Lockie and David Mason. Mike Wilds passing on a few words of feedback to Anthony before his son gets into the car, and the Atkins BMW in with a problem, I assume, because it's already made its mandatory pit stop. There is the Aston Martin inside the top 6 and second in Class 3, and back in the pits, Rachel has managed to catch up with Johnny Cocker.
Well, Johnny, how are you finding, first of all, the conditions out there? It's very hot. I know the tyres are under a little bit of strain at the moment.
Yeah, I think going into this one, obviously with a 2-hour race, the strategy always was to switch the fronts at the stop, but we ended up having to stop that little bit early. I felt quite a vibration from about 45 minutes into the stint. Turns out we had a little bit of damage to the tyre front left, so we ended up changing the tyre. But yeah, Thruxton, you know, historically, no matter what car you're in, is really hard on the tyres, and it was no different today, really.
And do you like racing here? Do you find it demanding here?
Yeah, I mean, it's a long time since I've been here. I think 2007 was the last time I raced here, back in the Drayson Aston GT3 car. So that was a British GT round. It feels quite similar. The cars are actually quite a similar pace as well now. So it was, yeah, it's been a lot of fun this weekend.
Refueled, new driver on board, new tyres on the car, and the FF Course Ferrari off the jacks and about to be released. The Class 2 leaders, bit of hesitation, not an entirely clean release that, but hopefully no dramas as it goes back out onto the circuit here at Thruxton. There is Javier Morcillo continuing to close the gap to the leaders, but still with a couple of laps to try and get back as the race-leading Lamborghini Huracan comes into the pits to make what's going to be its second stop. So that will take Craig Dolby up to his maximum driver time. More fuel goes in. They obviously couldn't do just one fuel stop and get to the end of the race. Meanwhile, we can hear now from Callum Lockie from the FF Course Ferrari team.
Well, first of all, tell us what happened. You had a puncture. Now, was that an accident or was it the pressure from the heat?
Feel how hot it is. Plus, we're pushing really. I mean, at the beginning, Craig and I were just going as hard as we could go. And no tyre is going to withstand that forever. And I did nearly an hour and 10. And you know, you're loading the lefts so hard at this circuit. You're doing way over 100, 140, 145, loaded like that. And you know, Dunlop said to us, you need to watch your tyres. And I pushed too hard for too long. But it was a strategy, you know. I pushed really hard to begin with and then backed it off and let Craig go because I could feel my tyres were not going to cope with that level in this heat on this circuit. It's very abrasive here as well. So tyres here always have to be your first consideration. And the Dunlops were absolutely fantastic. They held up for our game plan.
And are you loving it out there as much as you said you were going to look forward to it? Because you love it here, don't you?
Yeah, Thruxton is fantastic. The team here are very friendly and put on a great show. And I just love the circuit. It's just fantastic to drive around. Fastest circuit in the country. Qualifying was an average speed of 116. on that lap. So when you think about the chicane and the complex, that's pretty quick.
Yeah, it really
So it's
is.
very exciting. You can really open up these GT cars to their full here, which is not that common in the UK because the straights aren't long enough.
Yeah.
But being in the corners at that speed is just very, very exciting. You can really feel the aero working and holding you on.
Well, look, good luck for the rest of the race, and hopefully we'll be chatting to you guys later.
Great, and a big thank you to all the marshals and officials, and a big thank you to FF Course. Thanks.
And so suddenly, with those tyre problems for the Ferrari and an extra pit stop for the Lamborghini, it is the Tockwith Motorsport Audi that leads the race here at Thruxton.
Time for a short break now, but join us back here at Thruxton in a few minutes' time for the climax to the race. Welcome to the final part of the show. As round 4 of the Dunlop Endurance Championship speeds towards its conclusion, Chris Hartley is trackside to talk you through the closing laps.
We have an intriguing race here at Thruxton. We've already had 3 different race leaders. Currently, it is the Tockwith Motorsports Audi in first position. They picked back up the lead after the Wessex Vehicles Lamborghini had to make an extra stop for fuel. And there in third place now is the Mosler, so from 8th to 3rd for the flying Javier Morcillo as he puts a lap on the now 6th place number 1 Ferrari. Alan James brings his Synchro Motorsport Honda in. He's driving solo, so he can choose as and when he wants to pit, but new tyres I think will have to go onto the car. Indeed so, and on track the Mike and Anthony Wilds Ferrari is 4th, and this Ginetta run by Century Motorsport is in 5th place and leading Class 3 after a superb first stint by Jacob Mathiasson.
Do you like racing here? Is it your first time? Have you raced here many times before?
Yeah, it's my first time here racing in UK, so I really enjoyed it. And love the atmosphere and all the great people here, and of course all the nice circles, so yeah. And we have great success, so yeah, it's really good. It's quite tough out there on the tires, but yeah, just try to save them, and yeah, I like the challenge, definitely. Yeah. I really like it.
Brilliant. Well, look, good luck for the rest of the race.
Thank you.
It's been a flawless first stint from Alan James. After a much-needed break, he's going to hop straight back in, though, because he's driving solo for Synchro Motorsport. As into the pits with a problem comes the FF Course Ferrari of David Mason. So having a look at the back of the car at the engine.
As soon as they're ready, shoot out the pits, minding the pits, people.
It's Callum Lockie passing on a few tips to his students because he does all the driver coaching for David Mason. And now this is Javier Morcillo in the 3rd place Mosler, trying to get back onto the same lap as the Lamborghini Huracan, driven now by Nigel Mustill. So he's quicker, he's caught him up pretty rapidly, but he can't quite find a way through at the moment. They're both coming up to put another lap onto the second in class Whitebridge Aston Martin as well, driven by Chris Murphy. He's going to have cars either side of him at the moment. This is going to be interesting. On board with Nigel Mustill as he goes past, glued to his rear wing though is Javier Morcillo, and if Javier can get back onto the same lap as the Lamborghini, the way he's going, he still has a slim chance of maybe finishing 2nd in this race. But if he wants to do that, he's going to have to get past the Lamborghini ASAP. Here they come then, up Woodham Hill, up towards the club chicane. Is that Javier lining up a move? He gets alongside the inside line low, he's covered by Nigel. Nigel knows what's coming, makes that car as wide as possible. Javier though gets the better line through the second part of the club chicane and goes through. So he gets back onto the same lap now as the Lamborghini's just overtaken, and he's still got time enough to catch him up and try and get 2nd place finish. There is the race leading car though, driven now by Nigel Moore. I think he's too far ahead probably of Javier Morcillo to have to worry. As we switch to the onboard of FF Course Ferrari. Now that's good news because it means they're back on track. David Mason behind the wheel once more, and that problem, whatever it was, has been pretty quickly rectified by the team. But they have lost, of course, a lot more time to the overall race leaders, and he's going to have to still keep pushing hard to stay ahead of the BMW of Sam Allpass as we look at Nigel Moore in the Audi going slowly. So Nigel, the race leader, has got a problem here as he goes through the chicane. The Ginetta of Steve Fressel comes past him, and is this more tyre dramas or is it something else? I think it may be a tyre problem, yeah. So he limps it back to the pits, and this is going to be an extra stop, and now this is going to make things really interesting. Nigel Mustill in the Lamborghini won't be that far behind, and also you've got Javier Morcillo in the Mosler, who's going to be back on the lead lap now. There is Sam Alpass in the BMW. That car trying to catch up to David Mason. His extra pit stop, by the way, Sam Alpass, a seat problem. His seat was loose, he was complaining. They've sent him back out. There is the Audi then going back out, new rubber on. I don't think they will have refueled the car, so Nigel Moore should be able to take this to the end now. But how far clear of Nigel Mustel in the Lamborghini is he going to be? He's just about to go back out of the pits, and into the final corner at the club chicane comes the Lamborghini. So there's only going to be about 20 seconds or so from first to second now. But Nigel Moore has been quicker, a little bit quicker than the Lamborghini. So he still should be okay, although Javier Morcillo is 3 seconds a lap quicker than anybody, as we see Alan James in the Honda coming up to the Class 4 Aston Martin. So that's Chris Murphy trying to fend off Alan James, who's got somebody to enjoy a battle with. There's the Ferrari then of David Mason. That is being reeled in by several seconds per lap by Sam Alpass. He's running out of time, but Sam, I know he's in a different class, but he'd dearly love to get past the Ferrari. Sam's going to keep pushing here to try and get the Atkins Motorsport BMW upper place. Still looking good for fourth place is the Anthony Wilds Ferrari, the bright yellow machine. Going to be lapped again by Javier Morcillo, who is gunning down now the Lamborghini Huracan. He is less than 20 seconds behind second place and 3 seconds a lap quicker. So Talk With Motorsport's lead reduced, and Rachel is in the pits to find out more about what caused that problem.
What happened?
According to Dunlop, what the tyre technicians told us, we've hit a curb a bit too fierce, and we've had impact on the tyre, and then it's caused a weak spot in the tyre, and we've just had a puncture.
Okay, so nothing to do with the heat out there, because a lot of the tyres are under quite a bit of strain?
At the moment, we're just managing tyres because we're in the lead. We just want to hold on to that, so we're just doing tyre management. We were thinking we were going to have to do it, but we did it a bit sooner than later, to be fair. We couldn't do anything with it, it'd gone, so we had to pull him in sooner. But we're just managing the lead at the minute, see how we can get on till the end, hopefully.
Well, good luck. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We're into the final 15 minutes of the race, and here is the battle for fifth place. The Ferrari, driven by David Mason, has now been caught by Sam Alpass in the Atkins BMW, although David has been able to keep Sam behind him for the last lap and a half. So the Ferrari quicker in a straight line. The BMW is a bit quicker at the moment through the corners. Here is the third place car. Javier Morcillo has got the gap down again to the Lamborghini Huracan, but has a problem there going through the chicane. He suddenly slows and pulls straight into the pit lane. His magnificent charge ends, and that puts pay to any chances of catching the Lamborghini for second. The car slowing at the chicane, not the sort of place you'd expect there to be a tyre problem. So we'll wait and see what that was. David Mason on board with him then, as through comes into fifth place the BMW, driven by Sam Alpass. So the BMW through after a few laps of trying, with just a few minutes of the race to go. Javier Morcillo, though, out of the car, and they're not going to be able to get that one up and running again between now and the end of the race.
Javier, someone just said then broken the drive shaft. What happened?
Just the drive shaft on the chicane. I lost drive totally. So, well, what can we do? There's nothing we can do, really.
Do you think the conditions added to what happened, or is coincidence?
It's definitely hard work for the car.
Yeah.
And for the driver, as you can see. It's definitely hard work for the car, so everything is a factor, yeah. We don't have any traction, we don't have any tires on the rear, so the car spins a lot the rear tires. That's not good for the drive shaft. The chicane is not good either. So yeah, it's very logical that this happens here.
Well, Javier, really sorry to hear that, but we'll see you at the next round.
Yeah, sure, we'll be back on the next round, trying to hit a win or a podium. It will be nice. This time it's not possible, so we tried.
Well, halfway into this race, it didn't look likely that Nigel Moore and Phil Hansen would be taking their third victory of the season. But Talk With Motorsports and the Audi have come through, despite their tyre issue at 2/3 race distance. The checkered flag awaits. Nigel Moore punches the air, and it's win number 3 of the season for Talk With Motorsports. An excellent second place for Craig Dolby and Nigel Mustel in the Lamborghini, and the Wildses win Class 2 and take third place overall. Let's catch up with all of our class winners.
It was a hard weekend. We were always on a little bit of a back foot coming into this weekend. We struggled a little bit straight line speed with the car, but mainly we had a big penalty due to it clocking up over the last few rounds of time penalty. So we had a decent sized pit stop, and obviously we had to then try and gain those seconds back out on circuit. But no, Phil did an absolute excellent job. He's driving really well for his age, and he's coming on really quickly, which is very promising.
3 races, 3 podiums, won our class, so yeah, can't be bad.
It does seem to work. Anthony's always, I've never given him any coaching. He's raced for nearly 20 years now, and he has a natural ability. I talk to him about what I do in the car, and he just does it. And you know, he's generally quicker than me now, which is great, as it should be. I'm very, very proud of him, and he deserves to be racing, and I'm chuffed to bits that he's in the car with me.
Jacob set us up again, a great first stint, brought us in the lead. We've got this big pit stop penalty at the moment, but we're going to it's going to get bigger now, which let the Aston get in front of us on the pit stop. And then it was just, the word was, you got to make this time up. We made the time, got in front, and after that it was just bringing the car home really.
The pit crew came over on the radio and said that I was close to the Ferrari, and I saw I had 4 minutes to go, so I redoubled my efforts and had a good battle with him and managed to get past on the penultimate lap, and even managed to keep in there, which I was very pleased about given the difference in top speed. So that was very, very good end of the race for me.
It was quite tough. I did the full 2 hours on my own, so I enjoyed the little break we had after an hour and a half. It was good. The car again is faultless. The guys are producing every time we turn this car out. It's running perfect reliability. 8 races, 8 podiums, and 7 of those I think are P1 now. But we really want more in the class. We want to be racing people. We want to be show how competitive the car is, and not just how reliable it is. So hopefully people will start coming. We're here all year. We're coming to every race. So with any luck, they'll turn up.
At the halfway stage of the championship, Century Motorsport with Jacob Mathiasen and Steve Fressel have a 3-point advantage over Phil Hansen and Nigel Moore in the standings. Hope you've enjoyed our coverage of the Dunlop Endurance Championship. Until next time, it's goodbye for now.